Welcome back, students. We are in the fourth and final video for Modular 10, Services to Children, Youth, and Families. And we are going to be reviewing now child welfare and cultural diversity. It's important for anyone working in child welfare to be culturally competent and to have an understanding of the following. When we work with families, we're working with families from a variety of different cultures, a variety of different backgrounds. And if we don't understand their culture, their traditions, what they value and what they hold to be important, if we don't understand those and operate in a way that's respectful of those traditions and cultures, then we jeopardize our ability to be effective in working with people. And so that's what we mean when we talk about culturally competent. We have to be aware of the impact of culture on individuals, families, and communities. We know that culture plays a significant role in how someone identifies their family, what the role of parents might be, how does an extended family serve the nuclear family, diversity within as well as across groups, so differences within cultural groups. So we certainly want to take a look at integration into the community. We want to take a look maybe differently at a recent immigrant as opposed to a family maybe who's had multiple generations of living in the United States or living within our given community. And we certainly want to identify that diversity is a strength rather than a deviation. So I hope over time you begin to grow and understand more and more about how culture defines family. Many of you may come from households where there are grandparents that are living within your household, and that's very much the way that other families that you're familiar with live, that there's multiple generations that are all living in the same home. You may live in a family that culturally the role of the mother is very different from the role of the father, and that there are certain expectations in terms of gender. There are certainly families and cultures where children are regarded differently than they are in other cultures, and that how parenting is accomplished is seen very differently. And what does discipline mean, and how is it implemented? So all of those things get influenced by the cultural group that you're working with. And if you are working with families, you need to be familiar with those particular cultural norms and those unique aspects of culture and the way that they impact how people perceive their family. Most important is to view the client from his or her day-to-day reality and from the way that person's culture shapes that reality. So again, like I said, you may have recent immigrant parents who now are raising children who maybe are in their teens or early 20s. I always imagine for those particular people that they sort of have one foot in their parents' culture and one foot in more mainstream or American culture, while the parents may still continue to operate very much from the culture that they came from. And so it's important to sort of take a look at how people live their day-to-day lives, because that will give you a lot of insight into the way that they interpret their culture in terms of the way that they live. To be culturally competent when dealing with children, youth, and families, social workers first must be self-aware and in touch with their own culture and the way their culture shapes their beliefs about and interactions with others. You will never be effective in terms of working as a social worker if you're not aware of your own biases and your own preconceived notions about this is what a family is and it can't be anything different. This is the way that children should be disciplined and it can't be anything different. And so if you're not open to recognizing that people see things in a different way, different than the way you may see things, and that it's not one is right and one is wrong, it's just two different ways of looking at the same issue, then you have the possibility and the tools of being able to be more successful as a social worker. But if you really are going in with your own biases and your own ways of thinking, and really thinking if they're not doing it the way I understand it to be done, then it's not being done right, and therefore I need to intervene, you will not be successful. Social workers, too, must also become knowledgeable about other cultures and be willing to learn from clients, seeing them as knowledgeable in regards to their own lives and needs. Absolutely, one of the best ways to learn about a culture that you do not have familiarity with is to actually have dialogue and conversation with your clients. They're your best teachers, and they often are quite open and receptive to talking about what their traditions, what their norms are, the way they perceive family, the way that they perceive child rearing. Um, gives you a great opening or opportunity to be able to learn firsthand about a particular community or a particular culture. So, the role of the social worker in providing services to children, youth, and families include social workers that are working as childcare workers in group homes or residential treatment centers, women and children counselors at domestic violence shelters, childcare workers in group homes or residential treatment centers, counselors at youth shelters, law enforcement agencies, social workers who are working in child protective services, and foster care workers in public and private social service agencies. Um, Social workers working in family preservation programs, working with children with developmental disabilities and their families. Um, we talked a few modulars back about the number of substance abuse treatment programs that are now having children that are actually living with their family members in the treatment facilities. So now we've got families that are living in substance abuse treatment facilities. So substance abuse counselors need to know about family dynamics. School social workers, legislative assistants, people who are setting policy and doing policy work, staff members of state and federal child and family service organizations, directors of children and family serving agencies, and faculty at colleges and universities. So there's an interesting activity that you can participate in. It's a part of chapter 11. If you go through the book, you're going to see these boxes that have like little chunks of information. And there is one box in chapter 11, it's marked box 11.5, and it has the title of, Do You Have the Characteristics to Be a Competent Social Worker? So it goes on to say that several researchers have studied what constitutes an effective client-worker relationship. And according to research, child welfare clients want their social workers to be willing to listen and help, accurately empathetic, genuine and warm, respectful and non-judgmental, fair, accessible, supportive and practical, experienced and competent. So this is a great sort of check-in for you to be able to say, hmm, these are the things that my clients would expect from me. And remember, the reason that you are effective as a social worker is because you have an ability to develop positive relationships with your clients. That relationship building is a skill set that is mandated and absolutely necessary in order to be able to work in social work at whoever you're working with. But if you're working with families, youth, children, you need to be able to establish those relationships. And these are the things that your clients are saying they would respond to if their social worker had these characteristics or traits. So, really important information here to really help you gauge whether these are things that you feel like you walk in the door with, or are there some things maybe that you feel like you need to work on a little bit more? And that's okay too. It doesn't mean that you're not capable of becoming a social worker. It just means that it helps you identify some things maybe that you need to be thinking more about and thinking about ways to be able to develop those particular skills. So, in conclusion, families who are under stress due to things like poverty, drug abuse, family violence, or other issues are at risk of experiencing family dysfunction or breakdown. When a family breaks down, there's the increased risk of child neglect or abuse, homelessness, family violence, or other issues. By providing assessment and support services that can prevent families from breaking down, these issues can be prevented. So, again, we can prevent these things if we're able to identify them early on. Children can then be protected. When families are not safe, children are at risk of placement in substitute care situations. The needs of children, youth, and families are complex and diverse, and available programs are often very fragmented and limited in number and scope. Okay, so before we end, I wanted to take you, let me see where I'm at. Okay, there we go. So let me go here because I want to take you through modular 11. So hang for just a minute, guys. Appreciate your patience. So here we go. Modular 11, services to children, youth, and families. So here are the learning objectives. I think you can see that what we talk about here is that the child welfare service delivery system, it's a group of services designed to promote the well-being of children to ensure safety, achieving permanency, and strengthening families, to successfully care for their children. So I feel like that's everything that we've just spent the last 4 videos talking about. And here's an introduction to the modular as well. Next, you have the PowerPoint. And of course, the videos will all be integrated into the modular that the 4 videos that review the PowerPoint. This is a video that really talks about the concept of social justice relative to families. And again, you're hearing from social workers directly about what their experience has been. This is a great video. I just wanted to preface it with saying that the purpose for this particular video, and it says here in the note that I put at the top of the video, is that this video was produced as an introduction to potential employees who are considering employment as a CPS worker within the state of Colorado. So it's very specific to that, but it's amazing in terms of its ability to talk for social workers to talk about what their challenges are, what their where they find their success, where they find their happiness, where they feel like they're effective. The bottom line is working in child protective services can be quite challenging. And it becomes really, really important that if this is an area that you think you're interested in moving into, that you have as much information as possible about what to expect and what the work is going to be like. And more than any other video that I've seen, this one has, for me, at least given me what I thought was the most honest view of what a day-to-day CPS social worker experiences. So I hope you take the time to take a look at that. My expectation is that you will look at that. So we talked about cultural competency, and I think it's interesting because so often when we think about cultural competency, we think about ethnicity or we think about race. Um, but here's an interesting video that takes a look at sexual orientation and gender orientation relative to cultural competency. So it's a very short video, but I just wanted you to take a look at it. You're really hearing from a couple of youth who have been in the foster care system and some of the challenges that they had specifically around the issues of being LGBTQ. So. We talked about family preservation services, and this is a video based on a program, the National Youth Advocacy Program that's located in Indiana. And I thought it did a really good job of really talking about what family preservation services look like. So take a look at that. Here is the discussion board. Pretty straightforward, I feel like. So in chapter 11, you will see there is in the textbook in box 11.1, the story or narrative of Lottie wants the best for her children. So you'll need to read that particular case and then answer the questions. So the first question reads, identify two different family issues. So not necessarily from the mother's standpoint, but from really anybody's standpoint, I'm looking for you to identify two issues that this family is dealing with. Question 2, for each family issue, what is the effect it's having on the individual discussed in the narrative? Individual or individuals. So a family issue can have an impact on everyone in the family. It could be having an impact on a few members of the family. Rarely will it ever have an impact on just one person in the family. So for each of those family issues, I've asked you to identify two. What's the effect it's having on the individuals discussed in the narrative? What is your goal and action plan for addressing family issue number 1? Make sure it relates back to the family members you identified that it's having an effect on. When I talk about an action plan, I'm talking about something that has steps to it. So it's important that it's not a sentence, I'm going to help this family. That's too broad. You absolutely need to say specifically what you're going to do. I almost see something sort of in a bullet point kind of format. But it's got to be comprehensive and it's got to be thoroughly developed. And then I'm asking you to develop a goal and action plan for addressing family issue number 2. Again, make sure it relates back to the family members you identified that it's having an effect on. And then question 5, identify one prevention program or intervention program located in Fresno that you would suggest to address one of the two family issues. So identify either family issue 1 or family issue 2, and then do some research around a prevention or intervention program that you feel would help support the goals and the action plan that you've developed for either family issue 1 or family issue 2. As always, you should restate the question and then answer it in terms of your response. Your responses are expected to be done by Saturday, November 14th. And I'm asking you to reply to 2 of your peers by Sunday, November 15th. And again, if you want to have more dialogue about this assignment, again, Tuesdays, 6 o'clock, Zoom meeting, office hours, happy to talk with you there. If you need another time other than that, let me know and we can set something up other than that, than during that time. And then here's the quiz, okay? So, wow, guys, this is modular 11, we've got modular 12, and then we're done, except for the final exam. I did want to let you know that in the next day or two, I'm going to be posting some videos just about the written assignment and also about the extra credit opportunities. So be looking for that in the announcements section. And in the meantime, I hope you have a great week, and I will touch base with you soon.